And that's the end, Rosa says as she closes the last page of the book. She looks up to see 21 children all sitting on the carpeted rug in front of her, stunned into silence. "How can that be the end?" one boy shouts. "They just walk off into the sunset and then it ends? What happens next?" "Well, their children had children," Rosa explains, "and then their children had children. Tori and Hieronymous are my great-great-great-great-grandparents." Tori made it absolutely sure to not only record the Grabiner family history in as many volumes as she could, but to map a detailed family tree so that any Grabiner could trace their genealogy back through generations. It was Tori's final wish, and it's one of our family's most sacred traditions. "Read the story about Aloysius's childhood," another boy says. "No, read about Alice's adventures at Iris Academy," a girl counters. Rosa sighs as she glances up at the clock. "Unfortunately, I think we're out of story time for today. But you know what that means. It's lunchtime." The children all cheer. "And then nap time." The children let out an expected chorus of groans. She ushers them around to get their lunch, and she's so overcome with making sure that every child is sitting and eating and not throwing food around the room that she doesn't realize that one child has gone missing. It's not until she has them all settle down for their naps that she realizes that one sleeping bag is empty. Shutting the door quietly behind her, she quickly slips down the hall to check the girls' bathroom and then the boys'. Both were empty. She walked down the hallway, passing a plaque that read, "Grabiner's Early Enrichment Program." Hieronymous never did leave his life of education behind him, and he had opened up an early childhood education program to teach the children of young, noble families basic instruction to the magical community. The program had become such a success that Tori had eventually convinced him to create the Grabiner University, which now had 3 campuses, including one in her native state of New Hampshire. She creeps into the library and begins to search among the shelves before she sees a young girl sobbing into her knees on one of the red plush couches that were centered around the fireplace. Above the fireplace hung a life-size portrait of Hieronymous, sitting in a chair with Tori standing behind him. She had one of her hands on his shoulder, and he had his placed just over hers. The painting had been jokingly dubbed "The Misanthrope and His Viscountess" by Virginia's brother, Donald, because everyone knew that Lord Grabiner had a reputation for being a grumpy, impatient man who only had a soft spot for his wife and later his children. This was one of Rosa's favorite paintings of them, mostly because it was so different from the paintings of other noble families that she had seen throughout the years. Instead of looking directly at the painter, Hieronymous was looking up at Tori, his lips tugged back in a happy smile. Tori's expression was the best, though. She was looking back at him, grinning slightly as she bit into her lower lip, looking every bit like a schoolgirl with a bad crush. The plaque underneath the painting revealed that Tori was just a little over 40 when the painting had been commissioned, but even as the decades passed, she still loved him as much as the day she had first met him. "Hey there," Rosa says as she drops down beside the child, brushing the girl's black hair out of her face. "Hey there, Sophie. What's wrong?" The girl's red-brown eyes are shining with tears, and Rosa hesitates for a moment as she wonders if they were perhaps related. Although she would never voice the thought aloud, it almost amazed her to see how much the Grabiner family had grown in only a few generations. At one point, it had seemed that the Grabiner line might have truly died with Hieronymous, but he had helped it become the most prominent magical family throughout Europe and the Americas. Family parties had started to become so big that she found that she was still meeting cousins, nieces, nephews, and distant relations that were scattered throughout the world. Although she had never met her, Rosa bet that Tori would have been proud of everything her children and her grandchildren had accomplished. Was it the story that upset you? Rosa asks, and Sophie nods her head up and down. Why did it make you sad? It has a happy ending. No, it doesn't, Sophie insists. They both died. They loved each other so much, and now they're dead and they can't be together anymore. You don't know that, Rosa reminds her as she smooths her hair back out of her face again. You remember what Tori wrote? She believed that when witches and wizards die, they go off to the Summerlands, and they spend forever having a big party with their friends and family. So, they're still happy? Sophie asks, and Rosa nods. And they're still together? Rosa nods again. But how do you know that? I know that's what Tori wrote, Rosa offers, and Tori was very smart. No, Hieronymous was smart, Sophie corrects her. Tori was kind. Tori was both smart and kind, and so was Hieronymous, Rosa reminds her. Remember when Tori first met him? Hieronymous was so mean, and Tori reminded him how important it was to be nice to others. Tori didn't know a lot about magic, but he taught her, and he helped her learn what she didn't know. It's like a seesaw. They both gave each other what the other one didn't have so they could have balance. Sophie seems to consider this for a moment. I want more, she says at last. More? Rosa repeats. More stories, Sophie says. They did other stuff too. I want more stories. Like the time Tori, Hieronymous, and Virginia went to Italy and hiked a volcano, and they teased him about not being able to keep up. But there you go, Rosa says gently. You already know what happened. No, Sophie repeats. I know they hiked a volcano, but I don't know what else happened. How did she tease him? What did they say to each other? What else did they do that day? We know that it happened because of a letter Tori wrote to Alice, but we don't have all the details. We only have a sentence. Tori had a life full of lots of adventure, Rosa reminds her gently. She couldn't write down every single detail, otherwise she would never have been able to enjoy it. I guess that's true, Sophie admits, but she still looks upset. Okay, how about this? Rosa offers. How about we spend the rest of nap time reading one of your favorite stories about Tori and Hieronymous? My favorite story? Sophie asks skeptically, and Rosa nods. I don't know which one is my favorite. There are a lot of good ones. Oh? Rosa asks. Like what? Well, here's the time that they made up on the beach after Damien stole her memories, Sophie recalls. And then there was the time when they danced together at the Christmas party at Bege's house, and it was really romantic. Oh, and their first date at the Glen was really special, and that was romantic too, even if he didn't say much. I also liked it when Hieronymous and Tori got married again, and he kissed her for real in front of everyone. Their vacation with Bege during spring break in Hawaii, that was a lot of fun too. Oh, and there was also the time when... Just pick one, Sophie, Rosa says, although there is laughter in her voice as she says it. How much time do we have? Sophie asks. I mean, there are a lot of good stories. I want to know if we should start with the best ones or start from the beginning. Rosa smiles at her. Let's start from the beginning. So, this is the end of the trilogy, but it's not the end of the story. I'm about to release a part 4 of the story entitled The Prequel, which is actually part 1 of the story. I started this story 6 years ago, and over the course of those 6 years, people have asked me what paths I took to unlock every part of Grabiner's story. So I basically rewrote the story of Tori's first year from her perspective and added a lot of scenes from Hieronymous's perspective as well. Like how he felt about their marriage and their first chai date at the Glen and all of that. So that chapter is coming out tomorrow, and I hope you'll all look forward to it. It's not a perfect retelling of the game because I had to switch up some details to make it fit with the canon I presented in the story. But if you miss playing the game, then hopefully you'll enjoy this because there was a lot of dialogue from the game that I included. And it was definitely fun for me going back and replaying the game and seeing how Hieronymous's and Tori's relationship first started and knowing how they get to this point now. It was a lot of fun. So hopefully you'll enjoy revisiting their story as well. It's quite a bit shorter. It's only 60 chapters since the story takes place from September 1st to May 1st. But the chapters are a bit longer since I didn't cut any dialogue out of the game. I just added to it. But again, thank you so much for reading and following Tori's journey with me, and I hope you'll enjoy jumping back to the prequel and the origin of their love story as well. So again, thank you so much for reading and liking and subscribing and commenting, and the first chapter of the prequel will be here same time tomorrow. As always, thank you so much for all the support, and take care. Cheers.